Welcome to Clean Air Action's podcast, Cleaning Up Dirty. We talk politics with non-toxic people. I'm Liz Green-Schultz. I run a political nonprofit called Clean Air Action.
And I'm Sean Hoffman, Legislative Director at Clean Air Action. Clean Air Action is the proud sister organization of the Clean Air Council, the oldest environmental and public health organization in Pennsylvania.
Together, we fight for your constitutional right to breathe healthy air. Over here at Clean Air Action, we fight dirty with clean. That applies to anyone who messes with our political and civil rights, including corporations and politicians.
Today we have Eleanor Breslin to talk about her experiences as a senior attorney, small business owner, and mom that led her to win her local township supervisor election and now run for state rep for the 143rd to fight for public education, environmental protection, and to protect women's health. Eleanor, thank you so much for coming on our podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Eleanor, do I understand correctly that senior attorney is your title and not a commentary on your age?
I'm squarely middle-aged, and senior attorney is my job title.
Well, this could be a perfect time to mention that we have snacks just in case we need to eat our feelings. So as someone who is approaching middle age, I think I'm going to start with a Ritz cracker here.
And I should note for our listeners, it's a plain Ritz cracker. There's nothing on it. It's just a regular old Ritz. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think most people put stuff on the cracker.
I mean, what's your test group there? How do you know that?
Just a life guess, you know? That's just been my experience.
Eleanor, do you eat Ritz crackers? Sorry, I still have food in my mouth.
If I were to eat a Ritz cracker, I would probably have it with peanut butter.
I'm just saying, Liz. That's just peanut butter, you know?
So unfortunately, we don't have peanut butter today, but we do have a pretty solid snack
I see that.
selection. Yeah, we have Ritz crackers, Kit Kats.
I'm going to get a Kit Kat.
I couldn't actually get Girl Scout cookies, and I was pretty devastated about that. So if anybody has a stock, please, I'm at lschultz@cleanair.org. I'll take your Girl Scout cookie supplies. But I got the Keebler version, which I'm a little, they're great. I don't want to talk down about Keebler.
They're fun. They're excellent.
Please sponsor us. And we have Skittles. So because we like to talk about some spicy topics, sometimes we like to keep the snacks handy just in case.
Got it.
There may have been a warhead incident in a recent podcast episode wherein one podcast guest launched a warhead at another podcast guest. So got quite spicy in that episode.
There's no more warheads here, guys. We've toned it down a little bit.
Might have to launch a Skittle or two. We'll see how it goes.
So, Eleanor, your website for this campaign says you spent years advocating for people from all walks of life during their darkest days, and you fight for the healthy environment we all deserve. So, are those lies to get elected? Is this the beginning of a string of mistruths to mislead the good people of the 143rd?
Absolutely not.
Well, what proof do we have? I mean, it's not like you have a career commitment to public service or anything like that.
Yeah, so I've been an attorney for 20 years, going on 20 years. And my first role coming out of law school was as a public defender in Philadelphia.
Whoop,
and I was, yes, and I was with the Defender Association for 3 years. Some of the best years ever, I think, that any attorney could really ever experience.
I have also heard it described as the real world.
Oh, there is no question. It's the real world.
In more ways than one.
In more ways.
At every angle.
And I don't know if we've specifically said this on the podcast yet, but I too was a Philly public defender and lived through the real world.
Yes. I was also a public defender in Northampton County for a couple of years and was on conflicts counsel team, also in Northampton County. But recently, after my children were back in school, kind of post-pandemic, mid-pandemic, wherever we might be, I joined Clean Air Council, the legal team of the council. And so now I am fighting to protect the environment for the people in Pennsylvania.
Woo woo.
Curious what drew you to the environmental space, because public defense, as great and noble as that is, not so much an environmental gig.
No, I mean, it's true, but I have children now. My oldest is 13. I have twins who are 11. And, you know, when you are watching your children grow up, you start envisioning their future and what that might look like. And it became crystal clear that nobody was going to step up and fix things, and that I needed to do all that I can.
Did you know that Joe Kahn said that in our first podcast episode? Did you two tee each other up for this moment?
No, I've not yet listened to your podcast.
Please get out. It's been a great podcast. Thank you for coming so much.
No, it's true. It's true. You know, when you have children, you just get a whole different perspective on things.
I was going to mention that too, Liz, that not just Joe Kahn. I've heard a lot of people, professionally and otherwise, say exactly that. I had kids, and then I started to see the world in a totally different way and pay attention to these things that are affecting us all, and felt compelled to get involved on some level. And clearly, Eleanor, you're in that awesome group.
That's me.
Yeah.
And that's part of why I'm running. I mean, Pennsylvania can be doing so much better in terms of protecting its natural resources, really from every air, land, water, every aspect. We're just falling short. And not only are the laws that we have currently on the books not strong enough, but they're not being enforced enough. Both of those things need to be fixed. And I think that we need more people in Harrisburg who are willing to put the time in to understand what those issues are, to understand how they can be addressed, and then to get out there and vote on it.
I couldn't agree more. And I hope it's okay if I say on the podcast that that's why I'm one of the people who convinced you to run.
Thanks, Liz.
Because I know what a dedicated advocate you are, and a dedicated public servant, and a thoughtful, brilliant attorney who knows how to rumble when you need to, but knows how to do smooth, careful advocacy when you need to. Should I not be revealing all of these secrets?
No, I mean, I think anybody who knows me knows that it's true.
Yeah. And it's worth mentioning that obviously I do not have kids. And I say obviously because of the framing of my confusion, why somebody might want to fight for a better world for their children. And that's one of the reasons why I don't have kids, because it's hard to think about the world we're leaving the next generation. Yes. You mentioned clean air, healthy water. Do we have like a right to that as a Pennsylvanian or something like that?
It's funny you should mention that. We do have a right to that. We have a state constitution which guarantees not only the present living generation, but all future generations to come, the constitutional right to clean air, clean water, a healthy environment. The flip side of that is that anyone who is currently in office has a duty under our law to make sure that that constitutional right is being protected and advanced.
Is that happening?
In very few places.
If I remember correctly, that state constitutional right came into place in 1971. Based on your knowledge as an attorney, was that like an easy thing to come together? Just like a governor stroke of a pen and it's done?
No, certainly not.
Amending the Constitution is not easy, folks. Whether in the state level or on the federal level. That's a heavy lift.
Do the voters have to play a part in that?
For that amendment, I think that it was passed by the General Assembly in 2 consecutive legislative sessions.
That sounds right.
Yes, that's right. All right, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be real with everyone. I just Googled how to amend the Pennsylvania Constitution, which is a little bit embarrassing because I feel like I should know this already. And to add insult to injury, the first website that popped up is the ACLU of Pennsylvania. And the reason my deputy over here is chuckling is because not only am I currently wearing an ACLU shirt, but I am vice president of the local chapter board. So I feel like I should have known this. But it says, if a majority of Pennsylvania voters approve the proposed amendment, it is codified into the Pennsylvania Constitution. Unlike other bills, proposed constitutional amendments bypass the governor. They must pass in 2 consecutive legislative sessions in order to appear on the ballot for voters to approve or reject. Eleanor, do you know if that was the case in 1971?
I don't know if that was the case in 1971, which is why I hesitated to answer your question.
You weren't even born yet, right?
Not quite. I'm not too far away from there, but not quite.
And one of the big takeaways here is it's a really big deal. And it's a different process federally, but just as difficult, if not more difficult, to change. Whatever constitution you're talking about, to get something like that in there is not easy. And so the fact that this has been neglected in Pennsylvania is a big deal. And that's another reason why we're so excited about Eleanor's candidacy and her platform, because that's something we're trying to draw attention to, that this is a right as Pennsylvanians that we have in the Commonwealth that has been neglected.
And it's a duty for every lawmaker at every level in the Commonwealth.
Absolutely.
That's pretty deep, isn't it?
It's very deep.
So before we drill into Eleanor's campaign a little bit more, I want to further nerd out. We do that well around here.
Love that.
And note that it says bypass the governor. So I immediately issue spot separation of powers issue. Because I said, do we take the governor's pen and just sign this into law? No, we do not. So there are certain things the governor is allowed to just sign into law via an executive order or what have you. This is not one of them. In order to amend the Constitution, it has to go before the legislature, who the people voted in. The next member of the legislature, of course, being Eleanor Breslin. And then it goes in front of the voters. It's not enough for the legislature to vote it in. Then we put it directly in front of the voters to say, do you agree with this? Are you sure that we want to enshrine this right in the Constitution? And only if they say yes, does it become law. And that happened with respect to the environment in Pennsylvania in 1971. So it's pretty deep that it's been law in Pennsylvania for more than 50 years. And Eleanor, do you find that as a Clean Air Council attorney, it's really easy to get people to comply with our environmental constitutional right in Pennsylvania?
Not when they don't know about it.
And how about when they do? Easy then?
No, not then either.
So this could be a great moment to mention. Sean, do you want to tell him or should I?
Go for it.
Drum roll, please. Our enthusiastic endorsement of Eleanor Breslin for the 143rd.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We could not be more excited to formally endorse you, throw our weight behind you as a candidate, because that is how strongly we believe in your candidacy and the important role that you are going to play in Harrisburg, because the voters of the 143rd are all going to listen to this podcast and then turn out on April 23rd. If not, mail-in ballot before that. Yep. So the clock is ticking, and we need to get Eleanor into office urgently. So why are you running?
I'm running for my children. I'm running for all the children in the 143rd, because they all deserve a great public education that is fairly funded and that is in a building with facilities that meet the needs of the children, and where they are taught by teachers who are well supported by their districts and the school boards.
And Bucks County is no stranger to the press in terms of their schools. Is that right?
That's true. And I don't know if you saw the big article in Vanity Fair in February about the grassroots effort to push out the extremists from that school board.
About Bucks County?
Penridge School District.
Penridge.
Yes.
So this is not Central Bucks. This is a different district.
This is the school district in the center of the 143rd.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
And that school board now has a Democratic majority of school board members.
Wow. Was it Moms for Liberty on the school board? Yeah. So another common theme. You promise you didn't listen to the Joe Conn?
I really didn't.
Because we also talked about that with Joe Conn, because he played a role in, shall we say, helping the Moms for Liberty off the school board.
Mm-hmm.
As a Bucks County native myself, Liz knows I'm a bit of a Bucks County politics nerd.
To put it mildly. And
I believe that Bucks County is essentially America's swing county and naturally gravitates towards moderation, common sense solutions, particularly when it comes to our kids. I'm a graduate of Neshaminy High School, Neshaminy School District in Lower Bucks County, proud graduate of that public school system. My mother was a teacher there for a long time, and
I didn't realize she taught in your high school.
Briefly. Then moved to elementary school.
Is that brutal? That sounds brutal.
It was only 1 year, and everybody loved my mom. It was kind of cool. It was
That's cute.
But I have seen the decline of that quality of public education because of a lot of political stuff that frankly doesn't or shouldn't be part of that conversation. I think that the Moms for Liberty situation was that coming to a major head. And then voters turned around and said, this is unacceptable. We don't do this kind of stuff, this extreme kind of thing here in Bucks County, particularly when it comes to our kids.
That's right. That's right. In the 143rd, we have great public schools, and they need to stay that way. And the voters came out, and they flat out rejected with their votes the extremist infiltration into the school boards. The path through chaos begins at the local level. And this community in the 143rd started on that path in 2023. And we are continuing along that path in this election year.
This is a good moment to mention, perhaps, that I was a public school teacher. Have we talked about this? That I taught high school for 8 years. And when I decided to leave, it was partly because of state political context against public school teachers. I was a teacher in New Jersey. Our then governor, Chris Christie, ran on a platform that was a little bit against public school teachers, or at least against the union, which many people feel is against public school teachers, and is one of the things that drove me out of public education. So I would love to see someone like you championing the public school teachers in the 143rd.
Absolutely. They really need 100% unquestioned support from their representative. I was on the phone earlier this week with a current superintendent within the 143rd district. There are 3 school districts, Central Bucks, Penridge, and Palisades. Penridge takes up most of the 143rd, but communities also are a part of those other 2 school districts. I was on the phone with one of the superintendents this week talking about what they would like to see from their representative in Harrisburg. And what they want is a proactive reach out. We're considering this bill. How would this affect you? I'm thinking of co-sponsoring this bill. Is this a good idea for your school district? And granted, what might be good for one might not be great for the other. So there lies where the compromise and the negotiations would begin. But it's that proactive communication. It's that outreach, that relationship building. And that has to happen between any elected official in Harrisburg and the school districts within their districts.
Can I ask a slightly dangerous question? I'll cue up a Skittle just in case.
So you can throw it at me.
Is that happening now? Are those superintendents getting that outreach now?
It's not clear to me.
That's Skittle-worthy.
And if I can say, too, I think, Eleanor, when I hear you say that, I think that sounds like an important way to think about the teacher crisis that we're seeing across the nation. The profession has changed so much, and the demands on teachers have become so great, whether that's salaries or an expectation of doing a whole lot more with a whole lot less. And that's why we're seeing substitute shortages, full-time teacher shortages, etc. And that problem's not just going to go away on its own. That requires some elected officials really rolling up their sleeves and having those important conversations, because it's a major issue.
Absolutely. And really, when you have, if you're a teacher in a school district where your own school board is attacking you and challenging whether or not your work conduct meets their skewed standards of professionalism, that's not a place that most people would want to work, right? And really, the focus must be on the children. Everybody's focus. Anybody
Absolutely.
Who's involved in working at any level within a school district, the right focus is on the children. And I believe that in the school districts within the 143rd, most people's focus is on the children. And that needs to be supported. The community sees it, the community supports it, but certainly within the last couple of years, there was an exodus of teachers and support staff from these schools that had been overrun by extremists.
I can only imagine. And I experienced it myself. I'll never forget my first year as a teacher. There was an opening meeting, the first day of school before the kids get there, where everybody speaks, the superintendent, the board president, and the superintendent and the board president spoke back to back. And when they stood up to speak, they hugged. And I noticed it because my father-in-law was a school superintendent, and I knew that the dynamic between the superintendent and the board president is not always hug level. And so I called him after and said, "Is that common?" And he said, "Not that I've heard." So, and the district I taught in is one of the best in New Jersey. So the students really benefited from adult professionals' ability to work together. You mentioned that people do have the kids' best interests in mind. So is that something that you're seeing, experiencing, hearing about, that even when people are disagreeing about what's in the best interest of the kids, they are working together for the kids? Or are you perceiving that they might have different interests and they're using the kids in their own politicized way?
Well, I think it has been the latter for a couple of years, but I think that the community came together and rejected the extremist influence on the board. So what exists now are Democratic majority school boards where the focus is on the children. They're not only Democratic school boards, so not everyone is focused on the kids. But the community's focus is there. Obviously, it's it's our own children, and the majority of the board is focused on the children. And then the staff, in turn, feels like they have support. The superintendents feel like they have support, and it's just a healthier environment all around for the children.
Are you saying Republican-controlled school boards aren't there for the children?
I'm saying that extremist philosophies that interfere with what the teachers who are professionals are doing in the classroom. I think the children there are not the primary focus.
Do you want to launch a Skittle at me? Here, if you...
All right, I'll have it handy for next time.
Okay.
and I can even say, too, years ago, we had a similar sort of, this is back during the Tea Party era, where we really started in the...
It makes me feel old.
I know, way back. Where we started to see sort of extremist rhetoric on the part of Republican school board members in the Neshaminy district who were, I think, more inclined to go in that direction in the name of short-term political gains. And it just ripped the fabric of that district apart. Just recently, Dr. Gary Bowman passed away. He was a superintendent of Neshaminy School District, a great guy who certainly had his own political views, but throughout his entire career made a point of being well above politics and doing what was absolutely right for the kids and backing up the teachers and just striking that critical balance. And I was just thinking yesterday when I was reading the wonderful things people were saying about him. I met him several times, and I remember him visiting classrooms as a small student. And he was beloved for that approach. And I think that hopefully that's not something that's bygone. That hopefully that tradition can carry on. And hopefully, Eleanor, you can help really bring that back and preserve that, particularly in Bucks County, because I think it's super important.
This could be a good moment to have a transparency moment and mention the three of us all knew each other before today. Is that right?
That's right.
And so, Eleanor, did you know, Sean, I hope it's okay if I say this on the I don't know if we've...
I'm not even sure what you're going to say. So
do you want to get a Skittle ready?
I'm going to load one in the chamber here.
So I hope it's okay if I tell the entire internet this. Did you know that Sean ran for school board at age 21?
I think you had told me that. Yes.
And it was during that time.
Sean Hoffman for Neshaminy Schools.
I was so young and probably totally underqualified to do that job. But it was, I felt
if only
compelled.
that precluded anyone from running for school board.
But yeah, it was during that turbulent time when those things were really just starting, and Dr. Bowman had been long retired at that point, and perhaps that ushered in that culture change. But yeah, it's been creeping up, I think, throughout Bucks County. But again, I'm, like us all, extremely heartened that America's swing county is working that out and pushing out the extreme rhetoric that we're seeing, starting with our schools and even beyond.
Yeah, and becoming a model for other communities in the state and across the country who are currently facing this threat. Public education is under threat. It's not the only threat.
Right.
A woman's right to choose is under threat. And the environment is under threat, our planet. But on the issue of choice, I don't know.
Can I just say, I hope the recording is picking up the sirens in the background, because it's a very cool, dramatic moment. If not, just imagine sirens behind us. We are taping in Philly, so sometimes we can hear traffic noise.
This week in the Philadelphia Inquirer, I believe both articles ran on Monday. The first article, no, it must have been Tuesday. The first article was about what happened in Florida on Monday, where a 6-week abortion ban was upheld. The second article, pretty sure it was in the same issue, was about the Republican challenger to Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick and comments that were made during Republican committee meetings in, I think, Bedminster and Plumstead. Pretty sure it's both of those municipal committees. Whichever ones were referenced are in the 143rd district, where the Republicans are acknowledging that their public positions on abortion access is turning off voters, and that they need to moderate their position when they speak to the public so that they don't lose at the polls like they have been doing the last couple of years. What that means is these Republican candidates, whether they're running to get elected or they're running to be reelected, they're not being honest with the voters. If they start talking about a moderate position on abortion, it's not the truth, and it doesn't accurately reflect what they will do should they win in November.
I would love to assume that Republicans are the only folks doing that, but it makes me think of what Kansas did right after Dobbs came down, and I personally found that completely shocking. I might fudge the details here.
Everyone found that shocking.
So am I remembering correctly, they amended their state constitution to give a constitutional right to abortion shortly after Dobbs. Does that feel vaguely correct? Because
Yes.
it was longer than a year ago. Oh, wow. Dobbs was 2022? And it was a really, really shocking moment that gave me a lot of hope in our country, because the voters really turned out to say, no, pendulum swung too far. We don't like it. Let's bring it back. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what our country is designed to do. A few minutes ago, I was going to ask if, I don't want to ask if we hate the Moms for Liberty, because that's not what this is about. Is it a bad thing that they were elected to school boards in Bucks County?
Bad for who?
Great question.
Well, I think to the extent anyone extreme is infiltrating school boards, there's certainly a time and a place for extreme rhetoric in political discourse, at the very least as a way to expand our thinking, perhaps. But again, when we're talking about something so fundamental and so important as our children's education, that is really not the arena where you want to have those extremist voices who have an agenda that is oftentimes not even tethered to what's best for our kids and their education. And I think that is just not something where extremists on one side or the other should really be messing with.
So what is the proper arena for that? And the first thing that comes to mind for me is maybe the House of Representatives. Are you an extremist, future Representative Breslin?
No.
You don't really strike me as an extremist. Of our colleagues at the council, I would not put you at the far end of the spectrum.
Thank you. I'm pretty close to the middle.
Bucks County doesn't do extremists, at least not for
we
long.
don't.
Well,
not for long.
Incidentally, in Penridge and Central Bucks, we saw a little bit of a pendulum swing there. But it's funny because I was a Bucks County public defender for a year. #education moment. When I was working in Bucks County in 2021 to 2023, I started to see 1776 everywhere. It was on bumper stickers, T-shirts. I even saw 1776 tattoos. I finally asked a professional I saw regularly who had it tattooed on her hand. And she said that she and her boyfriend got them together as a reminder of the founding of our country. And I thought, I feel like I'm supposed to find that sweet, but it feels a little bit odd to me. And years later, I learned it's a dog whistle for 3%ers. Have y'all heard of the 3%ers?
Not before today.
They are an extremist group, or at least they're labeled an extremist group by the ADL, Anti-Defamation League, and also the Southern Poverty Law Center. They're considered far-right, anti-government, pro-militia, with the unifying belief that the U.S. government is tyrannical and everybody needs to arm up. So, listeners, if your cousin has a bumper sticker that says 1776, that might be what it means. And if you see a bumper sticker that's 3 capital I's with stars in a circle around them, that is what that means. So I'm sorry to give everybody maybe a little bit of a panic attack. Is this a cookie moment? Do we need snacks to lighten the mood?
I'm going to take a cookie.
When I was researching this, somebody on Reddit said, quote, I look at it as someone saying, quote, please take down my plate number and put me on the domestic terrorism watch list. Apparently, the 3%ers may be associated with the Oath Keepers who stormed the Capitol on January 6th. Somebody on Reddit said they were mistaken for a 3%er by their IT person because they used 1776 as a PIN code. And the IT person responded, oh, a fellow 3%er I see, and then started asking what kinds of weapons the person had.
Sure.
If they were part of any shooting clubs. So these are not things that I was expecting to confront in 2024.
In Bucks County.
Anywhere, but including in Bucks County, which, people in Philadelphia feel that Bucks County is quite conservative. And I'm not sure if central Pennsylvania would agree.
And Bucks Countyans are very wary of Philadelphia.
Indeed.
In turn.
It was the easiest way to bond with people in Bucks County when I started working up there to complain about Philadelphia. It is the favorite topic of Bucks County, or at least was in my professional travels at the time. So is there other extremism that you saw with your Bucks County experience? Or were your travels more with really good, reasonable, moderate people?
I would say the vast majority was with reasonable, moderate people. There was a house in Lower Bucks County in Lower Southampton Township, where I'm from, that flew a Confederate flag proudly from their flagpole in their front yard.
The slight amount of irony, as we were well above the Mason-Dixon in Bucks County.
Well above the Mason-Dixon indeed. But that guy had, and the "Don't Tread on Me" flag was right beneath it. He also maintained the American flag in its appropriate position, I guess, whatever that's supposed to be. But that was the first time I saw that. I remember I was shocked, and Mom, do you know that there's a guy with a Confederate flag? Oh yeah, that guy's been there for a while.
Yeah.
So it happens. But again, I think from my perspective, most people, Republican or Democrat in Bucks County, would look at that guy as a bit of a nut. And they're everywhere. But again, the gravity in Bucks County continues to pull towards moderation, towards common sense, towards whatever the wild issue du jour is in America. Let's take a step back and look at this from a common sense lens here in Bucks County. Eleanor mentioned Representative Fitzpatrick earlier, who represents Bucks County in Congress. And he's a guy who I would always describe him as a unicorn in Congress, in that he is typically much, much more moderate than his Republican colleagues in his conference. And that's because it's Bucks County.
I agree that Bucks County it's a moderate county. I think that the vast majority of residents in the county are fiscally conservative, and I think a majority of the residents of the county are socially moderate. So it makes it a moderate county.
I was in a particularly fiery place professionally when I started in Bucks County, and I really attribute the judges of Bucks County for helping teach me I don't want to say to be a moderate. I'm not sure anyone would accuse me of being a moderate. I sometimes joke I'm somewhere between Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, and Socialist, whatever that means. But standing in courtrooms throughout Bucks County and listening to the judges and making argument and seeing what landed and what didn't and hearing them explain why my arguments didn't work or why they did, and coming to see that when I only had experiences as a Philadelphia public defender with Philadelphia police, the Bucks County law enforcement, oh my gosh, so interesting spending a year plus talking to them about policing, because my beliefs about policing, when they were only rooted in Philly police, were quite limited in ways that I didn't realize, because Philadelphia policing is so different from law enforcement in Bucks County. So I found it to be a really, really valuable experience.
Fun fact, Tinicum Township, where I'm a supervisor, has the first female police chief in Bucks County.
Wow.
Yes. Her name is Nicole Madden.
Nicole Madden. That's very cool. I didn't know that.
Also important to bring up as far as Bucks County goes is we're seeing a shift from moderate Republican preference on the part of voters to moderate Democrats on the part of voters. For the first time since Reconstruction, we've seen Democrats elected consecutively as the commissioners of Bucks County.
Yes.
That's a big deal, folks.
Yes,
Since
it is.
Reconstruction, it's the 1800s.
It is a big deal. Whether you think it's a good or a bad thing, it's a big deal. It's something to notice.
Mm-hmm.
And to achieve such a win, those Democrats, again, had to run on a Bucks County platform, which I also think makes it extremely interesting and perhaps has implications for the nation that they recently filed a climate lawsuit in Bucks County. That's talk about leadership on an issue.
It's huge.
Particularly because as a township supervisor and as an attorney in this space, would love to hear more. Why did they take this move?
Well, I mean, we can see even just with all the rain that we've received this week. I think we had 4 days straight of heavy rains.
It was brutal.
It's been a brutal week.
Philadelphians have been grumbling about their roofs. A Philly roof cannot handle that much rain.
Well, neither can our roads, and neither can the infrastructure. And when you are dealing with month after month of these heavy rainstorms, these strong weather events, the infrastructure gets damaged, and someone has to pay for it. If nothing were to happen, if Bucks County were not to have brought that suit, the people paying for it would be the taxpayers. So PennDOT roads, PennDOT bridges, they get damaged, taxpayers pay. Local roads, local bridges, they get damaged, taxpayers pay. And I think that we can all agree that none of us think our taxes are too low.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, I don't want my taxes to go up, and I don't want to raise taxes in the township where I'm a supervisor. That's not on my agenda. I want to be able to do the work we have to do with the money we have.
What is a township supervisor?
The township supervisor, I mean, it depends on the size of your township, or maybe you live in a borough. But every municipality in Pennsylvania has a governing body of local elected officials who make decisions and govern the business of the township. So the Board of Supervisors or your borough council, we're responsible for the health and safety and welfare of residents within that jurisdiction. I'm a supervisor in a second-class township, which means that I have a...
Is that an insult to your township? What is
that is a legal term, folks. Tinicum is a first-class township by any measure.
It's based on population. Tinicum Township in Bucks County is a 32 square mile municipality, and we have just about 4,000 residents. So we're on the smaller side in terms of population, but it's a pretty big footprint. We're spread out. It's fairly rural. We don't have public sewer in our municipality, and we don't have public water. So when we talk about the effects of climate change on public infrastructure, most municipalities are thinking about their stormwater management systems, which are totally over. I mean,
I was thinking inundated.
inundated.
Literally.
That's the word.
Yeah.
Yes, inundated by the volume of water that is falling, and then on top of that, we have so much impervious,
Meaning concrete, sidewalks, roofs, driveways.
right? So
Anything pavement.
yes, anything that prevents the rainwater from seeping back into the ground.
Is that a climate issue?
It's a major climate issue. When you have a lot of impervious and you have a stormwater management system that is ill-equipped and outdated with respect to the average rainfall that we're seeing, you end up with damage to the public infrastructure. And we need that public infrastructure. It has to be in good repair. So someone has to pay for it. Should it be you, Sean?
I don't think so. As much as I'd love to help, I don't have the millions of dollars lying around.
Hundreds of millions of dollars.
It's extraordinarily expensive, particularly when it comes to water infrastructure. And this is an issue I'd worked on in D.C. American water infrastructure is hundreds of billions of dollars behind. And no one wants the responsibility of paying for that. But at the end of the day, the municipalities are the ones who are closest to the people. And Eleanor, I'm sure you've experienced this, have to routinely get extremely creative with how they stretch those dollars and figure out ways to stop these water issues. But there's only so much that can be done, right?
That's right. There's only so much money that comes in every year from our taxpayers. And I'm not interested in raising anyone's taxes. Last summer in 2023 in Bucks County, we had an extreme rain weather event. It was in July, and
the weather's been wild in Bucks County between rain, tornadoes. My first week in Bucks County, there were 2 sets of tornadoes.
Yes.
I was like, what did I do?
One hit a daycare center with children inside, right next to Doylestown Hospital.
Not typical weather for Bucks County, folks.
Well, but it has become typical weather for Bucks County, right? Over the last couple of years.
That's true.
We've watched a really dramatic shift there.
Over the summer, there was this extreme weather event. I don't remember exactly how many inches of rain fell, maybe 8 inches in about 45 minutes.
Wow.
And people were driving. They were just going about their day. It was a Saturday evening, and cars were swept off the road. 7 people died. 7 people.
And that doesn't just affect Bucks County, right? Because the rivers overflow, they come down to Philadelphia. I will never forget driving my husband to work one day and crossing the Schuylkill. And there's just a bunch of people standing around. And I pulled over and saw that they were all just staring at the Schuylkill River because it was so bloated. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. Just all of a sudden, it completely flooded the banks. It flooded homes near the Schuylkill, all of the businesses there. There were corporate vehicles that people didn't have time to move that were just sitting in the parking lot underwater. We saw an unmanned boat just float down the river. It was one of the creepiest, weirdest post-apocalyptic things I've ever seen. It's really scary to see these changes during my lifetime. And
Absolutely.
I'm not even that old yet.
All right, Eleanor, we're getting close to time here. I have to ask one of my very favorite questions. Do you have a pump-up song? And I like to describe it as if you're walking up to plate, you're walking up to the plate at a baseball game. What's that song you're walking out to?
So
No wrong answers.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
You seem ready.
No, well, I mean, so I'm embarrassed to talk about this. I don't know,
It's a
for
safe
some
space.
reason.
This is a safe space.
It doesn't feel
It's
it.
It's just the 3 of us here.
But, I never really paid attention to Taylor Swift before, I don't know, 2023 maybe, when my younger daughter started to listen to her music and then ask for her albums. So I have 2 Taylor Swift pump-up songs.
I love this for you. I can't wait. Should we guess? I'm not a big Swiftie. Sorry. I wish I were, but do you want to guess?
Oh, you're gonna have to. I don't style myself. So nothing against Taylor, folks.
I know, really, nothing against Taylor.
I'm going to go, I Knew You Were Trouble.
No. But that was a good guess.
Hit
so
us.
the first one is, Are You Ready for It?
Yes.
And the second is Karma.
Love that. I will be sure to listen to both of those songs.
I definitely know Karma. Karma's been on the radio a lot. Those are great pump up songs. Those are super in vogue right now.
Wait, what
or
is
maybe
it?
4 years ago.
Karma and what's the other one?
Are you
called?
ready for it?
Are you ready for it?
I think anything Taylor is 100% current right now at this moment.
Thanks, Sean.
I can understand your hesitance to reveal this, but you have 11 and 13-year-olds, so it's fair. It's fair.
How can you judge? She's like the Beatles, man. I mean, it's...
I know she is. And so here's the funny thing.
And I say that as a devoted Beatles fanatic, okay?
That's putting it mildly as well. A couple weeks ago, I tried to watch the Taylor Swift LA concert that's on whatever streaming service right now. And I just couldn't do it. It was like 15, 20 minutes and I had to turn it off. So I'll try to give it another go. But I'm not a Swiftie.
It's a great show. People around the world like it.
And she's a Pennsylvanian. She's from Reading, not too far.
Berks County.
Yeah, not too far from here. So we need to... Please come on our podcast, Taylor Swift. I take back everything I said.
Please do.
Well, we do have to ask you a really important question.
Okay.
Prepare yourself.
I have my Skittle ready to throw right at you.
It's very fun interviewing a public defender. Our listeners need to know, do you watch The Bear?
Yes, I have watched every episode.
Are you a fan?
Yes.
Do you have a favorite scene or a favorite character?
The scene is the Calvin Klein underwear ad. That's my favorite scene. After I saw those ads, I was texting with a friend of mine and I said, I never knew what was going on underneath that apron. I need to watch every episode again.
That is a perfect note to end on. Couldn't have been a better answer to that question. Love that. And you didn't even know the question.
True.
That was a spontaneous, I love this. Well, thank you for coming on our podcast.
Yeah, this has been a blast, Eleanor. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Total blast. We've been colleagues for how long? I had no idea you were this fun.
Thanks,
So
Liz.
fun.
And to all of you, thank you for listening to Cleaning Up Dirty. To help us clean up dirty, follow us at Clean Air Action everywhere on social media and subscribe to Cleaning Up Dirty wherever you listen to podcasts.